about time we put a video out about Brexit. Now really this video could be really short because ultimately we just don't know, and that could be the end of it, but that's not really going to be very helpful. So we thought we'd cover a few subjects that we think might be helpful to turn this unknown quantity that is leaving the European Union into something practical. I've recently heard that some local government officials were saying businesses will cope with Brexit, so they're not worried about business. I think that's a little bit unfair, because as people in business, we are worried about Brexit and we don't know what's going on, and there's not a lot of assistance out there. Obviously, the comments I've heard are untested. I've not had any evidence for them being said, but I get the impression that is the general consensus. Business will just adapt. But we don't know the details of what will happen. So if we don't know the details of what's going to happen in the future, how can we possibly be ready for it? Well, the answer is to control the controllables, so that anything we know about now, we can make sure we know the best of and put us in the best position to adapt as things happen. So a few tips that we've put together are: 1, know your network. If you know as much as possible about your suppliers and your customers and know how they operate, that's going to put you in a better position to keep those relationships as we go through a difficult transition period. Because no matter what happens, there will be a transition where we will have to adapt. So if you've got suppliers or customers in the European Union, this is the time to get to know them better. Spend some time making those relationships as solid as possible. It's also probably a time to get to understand how they trade with other people who might be outside of the European Union, so that you can understand what compliance requirements and what administrative requirements they have for that. And then you can start building a shopping list of things that you might need to sort out should we exit the European Union without a transitional agreement. Another item is to delegate as much as possible. To cope with change, as a business owner and a leader of that business, you need to have as much time available to deal with the immediate issues of the day. And as we get towards March next year, it's going to need your time to focus on this to make sure everything's going to run smoothly. Now, some businesses you're not going to need to put as much time in as other businesses, where actually the core of everything relates to trading with the European Union. So delegate as much as possible. Now, to delegate, you're probably going to need to set out some good processes. This is something that we've specialised in over the years, is how to put in place standardised processes for core things that happen every day, so that it's not dragging in the owner-manager's time. The final thing, and probably the most important thing to come out of this, is to understand your compliance issues. Now, we obviously always talk about the tax issues and things like that, but if you're importing and exporting items from what is effectively a foreign country, when the Brexit deal happens, the trade that you have with the European Union will effectively be the same as trading elsewhere in the world. And it's time to get to grips with what that would mean. There are certain things you might need to register with, certain certificates you'd need to have, so that it starts to secure your supply chains and your sales chains and stops things getting delayed. One of the risks that we have at the moment is if you don't have all the paperwork in place on the day that Brexit comes in, any goods you've sold to Europe might just get stopped at the port because there's no transitional agreement, and at which point that's going to delay you getting paid because your customer's not received the goods, they're stuck in a port, you've spent all the money getting them out there, and it's all just in limbo. And this is the sort of thing we now need to start planning for and putting everything in place to make sure that doesn't happen. And if it does happen, all the parties in the chain know what to do and you've got a plan for it. So that's just an example of how compliance may happen in a way that you need to plan for. And it's going to be unique to every business because we've all got different suppliers, we all trade in different things, and as I said at the beginning, we don't know what we're doing. So to go back to that local government saying businesses will adapt, my concern is that overall business will adapt. People who are prepared for Brexit and have got controlling the controllables covered are the people who will grow once Brexit happens. They will be in the best position to expand and take on the work that other people who are not prepared lose out on. On the flip side to that, if you're a business that hasn't made any thoughts and put in place any procedures to deal with what could happen, then you're likely to start losing out, shrink business, or cut things off completely that deal with any of the problematic areas, which leaves it for your competitors to grow into. So really we're at a deciding point. Which side of that equation are you on? Are you going to ignore Brexit and just cut your losses and let your trade with Europe go? Or are you going to be one of the ones that use this as an opportunity to grow in a better way than some of your competitors?